ॐ भूर्भुवः स्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ भूर्भुवः स्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ भूर्भुवः स्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात्. Adorations to Surya Narayan, the one that illuminates and gives us that energy, the brightness and sustain. We pay adorations to you, Surya Narayan. You support all the other planets, including our Mother Earth. Without you, there's no existence of our Navgrahas. The devotees welcome this morning, and it's a beautiful morning here in Jamaica, Queens, New York. And let us chant some Gita, and I'll go today to chapter 2 and verse 62 and 63. Dhyayato vishayam pumsa sangasteshu upajayate sangat sanjayate kama kama krodha vijayate krodha bhavati sammoha sammoha smriti brahmsad brahmsad vidinasho vidinashat pranashati. And here Krishna Bhagavan is talking about when Arjuna would have asked the question that Bhagavan Krishna, what are the signs of a person who is stable-minded? You know, because in this life, we have to go to a place where we are in relationship with God and come out of that place that we are not. So here Arjuna is asking the question. And Krishna Bhagavan is telling before that, you know, that person who is in equilibrium, who is peaceful and tranquil. But then he's now talking about what takes away that tranquility. And in this sloka, he's talking about telling Arjuna and telling us also that when we contemplate on sense objects, what happens? Becomes an attachment to it. And when that attachment is there, then the desire comes up that we have that desire for it. And when that desire is not fulfilled, then what happened? There's anger. And then he continues to say, when there's in this anger is nothing other than when someone that desire is not fulfilled. So from anger, the confusion of memory. And from that confusion of memory is lost. And then when the memory is lost, then the intellects get confused. And because anger is temporary madness. But when the intellect is confused, then the anger can get into total madness and cause our ruin. So this way we have to avoid these kinds of things, because here this morning we have our 5 senses, and they are being supported by the 5 elements that we have here. 5 elements meaning that the earth, water, fire, air and space, this is our mandir, this is our murti. And from that, these 5 elements support our 5 senses. Because if you think about it, the 5 senses are the smell, which comes from the earth, and the seeing, which comes from the fire, the sun, and that is coming through our eyes. And then the water, which is for tasting, and it's in our mouth, our saliva and juices in our body. And then the air, which is perceived by our skin, and it goes and tells us if it's cold or it's warm, and we make adjustment, we make the wear the right clothing. So, and then the space is it's in our air, and when that space receives the sound or air, it interprets it. So the 5 elements and the 5 senses come and make up our mind, and the 5 elements make up our body. So here we can say that our body and mind is right in front of us. We now know how the body and the mind is created, and what is the body and the mind. And then if we respond to the environment, then that using the intellect. And for us at Bharat SEVASHRAM, Sheng, Swami Parameshananda would have said distinctively, the power of dispassion and discrimination, that we have to choose from what is good and what is bad. And if we choose the good, then we'll be lifted up and we'll become that stable-minded, sthita pragya. And when we have that sthita pragya, then we become God-like. But if we allow ourselves to be, if we react to the environment, that is when our mind will betray us and cause us all kinds of difficulties. Well, this morning it's so appropriate because there's a story that goes with it. And there was a young lady, and she was very poor, living by herself. And, she would have been in the age-old profession where she uses her body to make a living. But across from there's a sadhu, a holy man, and the sadhu will call her one day and say, look, I know what you're doing. You can't be doing that because it's not right. And she was crying, and she says, yes, Babaji, I wouldn't do that anymore. But she tried it, and she tried to opt out a living, and she would have prayed to her God, Krishna, and it just didn't work. She couldn't make a living. She was starving. So then, oh, how beautiful, the ducks are coming in there. Let us watch them. This is nature at work. They just come in there, and they're beautiful. Look at that, the ducks. Anyway, I continue the story, but she couldn't make a living. And then she started continuing doing what she's doing. So there were customers coming, and every time someone come, the sadhu across the street would put a rock in front of the house. And after some time, that rock became very high, like a little mountain. But she so happened that they both die at the same time. And so a judgment time. And then when the Yama was judging, and he spoke to the sadhu, he says, you have to go to hell. So then he says, and why? Why is this, that I'm a sadhu? Look at that lady there, that she was using her body. How terrible that is. And Yama would have said, God would have said that, yes, I know, but while she was using her body, her mind was there. There was a distinct separation, that her mind was totally on me, and her body was used for making her living. It's not something that we want to say and say this is okay, but this is a unique situation. How many people can do that, right? And of course, not in this age. Anyway, so when he asked, well, what's the verdict on this lady? Well, she is a liberated soul. Why? The sadhu's asking. Well, she was there, totally his mind is fixed on me. And this is the purpose that devotees that we have to do. When we fix our mind on God and we do our daily work, our mundane work, the mind has to be always fixed on the Lord. And this is something that we should always think of, that when we start judging people, it is not our place to judge people. Here in America, we are very little worried about our president, President Trump. And it is not our duty to judge him, because each one of us, like that lady, that's how she made her living. That's her personality. But she ended up as a liberated soul. The same way, we shouldn't judge anybody. So we want to pray for the president because he has a role to play, and we want to do the peace prayer. Om Sarveshang Mangalang Bhuyat Sarve Shantu Niramaya Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschit Dukha Bhag Bhavet Nandantu Sarva Bhutani Niratan Khani Santucha Preetirastu Parasparam Siddhirastu Chakarmanam Swastyastu Raju Nityapa Sham Prajabhyastate Vastu Swastyastu Dupade Nityam Shantirastu Chatushpade Shantirastu No Devasya Bhurbhava Swashivam Tata Sarvataha Shantirastu No Somya Bhavanta Bhutani Tvam Deva Jagatasrasta Pata Deva Tvamevahi Prajapalaye Devesha Shantim Kuru Jagatpate Yo me adya snihate tasya Shivamastu sadhabhave Yascha mandvishti loke asmin Sopi bhadrani pashyanti Hari Om Shanti Shanti Hari Om. Today we're praying for the president, but also we're praying for ourselves, because he's the leader of the free world, and the prayer is saying, we pray for our leaders, we pray for the people, we pray for all of creation, let they be pleased in the bipeds and the quadrupeds. The ducks are here, the geese, we pray for them, for their peace, and also for living creatures, the cows and all the animals, the elephants, all the bhutas, all created things. So this is such, and we also pray that, who we consider to our friends, we pray for them, and also who we consider to be our enemies, we pray for them also, because we want peace, peace, peace. You know, in life, there should be no such thing as there's no such thing as a justified resentment. In other words, we shouldn't develop hatred for anyone and anger when we have that hatred. Because this is what the sloka was saying when Krishna Bhagavan was telling Arjuna this, that there's no such thing as a justified resentment. And how we overcome all of this? Embrace silence, meditation. And we should treasure our divinity, because we are all gods and goddesses. We just have to rediscover that. And we should avoid thoughts that weaken us, that whenever a bad thought is coming come in our mind, we should get rid of it. Because it doesn't, if we think bad out of another person, it doesn't really hurt that person, it hurts us. So this way we should treasure divinity, we're gods and goddesses, and also avoid thoughts that weaken us. And when we do that, we'll get into that place of being spiritual. And when we become spiritual, what happens? Our thoughts break their bonds. Our abhiman no more exist, because we are not attached to anything, because our ego is telling us we are what we have, what we do. We are a reputation, things are missing in our life, we're separated from each other, and most of all, we are separated from consciousness. Consciousness is keeping us alive. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadhaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om. You know, this prayer is saying, from that all-pervading consciousness, this consciousness came. So, if you take away that all-pervading, we are still that perfection. So this is greatness of our prayers, that we shouldn't utter them just like a parrot utter them, but we should understand. And when we understand, it's the wisdom is going to liberate us. And when we understand these prayers, then how beautiful it is. This morning, I am so privileged to be talking to you. This is the seva of a sadhu. That this is the greatest seva in the time of this COVID. Swami Parameshananda always puts me in the right place at the right time. And today, and throughout this COVID, I was thinking how I will cope. And then he inspired me to do this. And it's all his doings. It's not mine, it's not my ego. And when we are, again, let's go back to when we're in spirit, what it is. Our thoughts break their bonds. Our mind transcends limitations. Now there's no limitation of the mind because we have a divine mind. So we're thinking like God. The mind and the consciousness expands in every direction. We are that consciousness, that creative force that created this universe. When we're in spirit, we are in a new, great and wonderful world. Talents, faculties, and dormant forces come alive. We don't know where all these ideas are coming. I'm here speaking to you. I'm not reading from a book. But the thoughts and assimilating the thoughts is coming all from the Guruji because I surrendered to him. Dhyana Moolam Guru Murti, Puja Moolam Guru Padam, Mantra Moolam Guru Vakyam, Moksha Moolam Guru Kripa. That, oh Guruji, I meditate on you because I want to be one with you. I worship you. I do your arti every day and surrender myself. I also read your scriptures, what you said, and all the great gurus. I read the Bhagavad Gita and all the Vedas, Upanishad, to keep myself abreast of it, everything. And then I know you'll give me the moksha and liberation. So this is what it means by dormant forces, faculties, and come alive. And then the last one is you find yourself to be a far greater person than you ever dreamed to be. These are things that will tell us that we are in spirit. We are spiritual people. That we are spiritual people having a human experiences and not human being having a spiritual experiences. So this morning I just want to bring this to you and let us all sing a nice song, and simple one. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. You know, when you're in spirit, you have nothing bothers you. That you see through the practice of yoga, asanas, and meditation, you find yourself that you are one with the universe. You're not affected by what is happening around you because you realize that you are what was created and you are what is keeping what is created alive. And you are everything. Just like Krishna Bhagavan would have said in the Gita and Swami Parameshananda would have said. This is the whole purpose of religion, to bring us to this state. So when we are like that, then the only thing that we are not, that God is not, or we are not, consciousness, is the free will. So now let us exercise our free will And let's say to ourselves, I want to be like you, oh God. I will help me to rediscover and rediscover that I'm just like you, consciousness. And this is the story. Now you might be saying, oh, Swamiji is saying the same thing. But you know, when you say something over and over, it gains traction and you start believing in it. And this is the purpose of the incarnations. They say the same thing. The Christ said the same thing. The Buddha did the same thing. Swami Parameshananda did this. Bhagavad Gita said the same thing. Ramayana is saying the same thing. That they are saying the same thing, and they say it over and over. So that's why let us all think like the gods and goddesses. Hari Om Shanti Shanti. It's Saturday morning here in America. I guess it's a day off. Have a beautiful day, and please transform yourself from that lower nature. Don't let thoughts weaken you, but have thoughts that strengthen you. Think of God all the time. Hari Om Shanti. Hari Om.